Hello, this is Dave Sugarbaker, and today is the middle of June. This is June 15th, 2025, and I have a sermon from today and one verse that's from 1 Samuel, and I'll explain the verse after a bit. But the Lord said to Samuel, "Do not look on his appearance or on the height of his stature, because I have rejected him. For the Lord does not see as mortals see. They look on the outward appearance, but the Lord looks on the heart." This particular verse comes from a great story in the Old Testament about the beginnings of the rivalry between King Saul and King David. So God is, in the narrative, God is fed up with Saul, who is behaving erratically as Israel's first king. Modern scholars think perhaps he was bipolar. And God tells Samuel, who was his spokesperson, his mouthpiece, his prophet, to anoint a new king for Israel. And Samuel knows that if he does this openly, Saul will kill him. And so he announces that he's going to Bethlehem to offer a special sacrifice. And when he gets there, he invites Jesse to join him. Now, Jesse has 7 sons, and one of them, we know from the narrative, is going to be the next anointed king of Israel. It's kind of a Cinderella story. Starting with the eldest son, Samuel reviews all the sons of Jesse except the youngest one, David. They all appear to have lots of good qualities. They're good looking, they're tall, they're kingly, supposedly. But God rejects all 6 of the elder brothers. And God explains to Samuel, God does not see things as mortals see them. They look on the outward appearance, but the Lord looks on the heart. So Samuel asks Jesse to bring the youngest son, David, in from the fields where he's tending the flocks. And Samuel anoints David as king, despite the ongoing presence of Saul, whom Samuel has also anointed years earlier. It's a long and exciting story, but I'm not going to go into any more of it, except that God doesn't see things as we do. The Lord looks to the heart and not to outward appearance. In my counseling, I've listened to people suffering because they have doubts and fears, and everybody else appears to have it together. What's wrong with me? Why can't I be confident like everybody else? And I try to assure them that we all have the same problem, and that is we all know our own inner snake pits and fears and inadequacies, but we only see everyone else's public face. We compare our insides with everybody else's outside, and we wonder why we have a full set of warts and faults while everybody else seems to be so well put together and polished up. We can't see anybody else's insides. We just see the outside. And the trick is not to beat ourselves up about seeing only our own faults. We have to know that we are all human and suffer from the same limited perspective. We each carry wounds and scars and fears and insecurities and imperfections that come from interacting with other imperfect human beings, sometimes hurting them or being hurt by them. But God doesn't see things as humans see them. We look at outward appearance. God looks at the heart. If we looked with God's eyes, we would see a 90-year-old man and his 80-year-old wife as the first ancestors of a great nation. That would be Abraham and Sarah. Both of them can't help but laugh and snicker when the idea is presented to them that they're going to be the ancestors of a great nation because they've had no children at the age of 90 and 80. Looking through God's eyes, a slave boy named Joseph becomes the Secretary of Agriculture in Egypt, saving his own nomadic family and all of Egypt from famine. Looking through God's eyes, we see the greatest king of Israel in Jesse's youngest son. But who's ever heard of such a thing? It was supposed to be the firstborn who's the big deal. So what's up with this? Looking through God's eyes, we can see past the destruction of Jerusalem and the deportation of all the educated people to Babylon to offer a message of hope to the people through Jeremiah, as he buys Judean real estate in the midst of war and destruction. What a great symbol that was. Looking through God's eyes, we can look beyond Jesus' crucifixion by the political rulers of the day to the day when everyone will refer to the Holy Roman Empire, where Christians will permeate the culture of all of Europe and beyond. Looking through God's eyes, we can see Saul, or as we know him, Paul, the persecutor of the earliest church, as the church's chief spokesperson, and Peter, the Jewish arch-conservative of the way, baptizing non-Jews into the fellowship of believers. Wow. Looking through God's eyes, we see ourselves as both infinitely small and infinitely important to a God who is a God of all there is, a God who numbers the hairs of our heads and the grains of sand by the sea, a God who knows us at a cellular level and is acquainted with all our ways. And that means a God who knows our faults and fears, our thoughts and impulses, our best and our worst, and nonetheless surrounds us with a great love. We experience a forgiveness that doesn't even let us finish asking for forgiveness before that forgiveness is granted 100-fold. God's not keeping score on us. I've counseled people who are worried that they have finally done something that God won't be able to forgive them for. And they argue with me about how bad they are and all of the reasons that God shouldn't forgive them, when in reality, they can't forgive themselves. They have built a box that they can't get out of. And I've gone so far as to tell them that if God forgives them, perhaps they should take a cue from God's acts and try to forgive themselves. Unless, of course, they think that they know better than God. We can get so tangled up in things that we can lose our perspective and let ourselves get dragged down, obsessing about the small stuff. And you know what? Most of it is small stuff. From what we know about who God is and how God operates, we can imagine how things look through God's eyes. What little we can know of God's perspective may be enough to show us the way. God does not see as mortals see, says 1 Samuel. We look on the outward appearance of people and things, but God looks to the heart. Now, God bless you, and if you find value in this, I hope you'll pass it along. And I want you to take care of yourself, and see you soon.